Lincoln's interim town manager has resigned according to a resignation letter obtained by WABI. Wade Schaefer, a pastor who was appointed by the council on May 11th, resigned in an email sent Monday night after the town's budget meeting.
The resignation comes as the town has been facing public backlash due to a budget vote that same night that slashed funding for local departments, including fire and EMS. In the letter, Schaefer says while he was disappointed with how the budget meeting went, that is not why he resigned. Schaefer
says he resigned because the job was interfering with his duties as a pastor. He will stay on the job until July 22nd, according to remarks made by a city councilor at a taxpayer listening session Wednesday night.
Schaefer was Lincoln's fourth town manager in the past